I think that in Canada we've got a bigger prick than Trudeau even. And that man's name would be Steve Paikin. I just sat through an interview that he did with a guy. He's a Harvard philosopher, brilliant sounding person, emotionally stable person, absolutely wonderful. And Steve Paikin is a beautiful interviewer. Try to find something a little more, whatever. And so what this guy argues is that if you're dealing with people who are crazy in the following ways, if you are a flat earther, if you're a climate denier, or you're a person who rejects science and reason and evidence, then what you should do with that kind of person is you should establish an emotional relationship, an emotionally warm relationship, a trusting relationship, a respectful relationship, because those people have been misled by cranks, and because they've got that identity as climate deniers or flat earthers or people who reject other sorts of science. That's their identity. Absolutely, positively true. Everybody's getting an identity out of politicizing everything now. So it's not just flat earthers who do it, it's everybody's doing that. Okay, so what he's done is he's lumped together people that he would call climate deniers with flat earthers. The problem with the expression climate denier is they deliberately, in the beginning, I don't know that so many people will be aware of this now, but it's sounds an awful lot like Holocaust denial, doesn't it? So you got Holocaust denier, climate denier. That wasn't an accident. And he said that if you want to deal with people that are crazy like that, you have to first set up a respectful relationship. Okay, so what you've done is you've disrespected the people you're talking to immediately by putting what you call a climate denier on the same footing with a flat earther. So, like, how could, like, he wrote this book a few years ago. He's been on Steve Paikin a couple of times. And how could they not, like, just put that together? I doubt that that guy's got a clue what people he would call Holocaust deniers even think. I don't think that there's anybody that I know of outside of the Middle East where they deny the Holocaust big time or think it was a good thing. You might want to check that in. Check that in. All right, check yourself in. If you think that a really serious problem in the United States or Canada is right-wing extremists who don't think the Holocaust happened, yeah, go ahead and check yourself in. The people he would call Holocaust deniers are people who say, no, sorry, that the history that we've been told isn't exactly what happened. Like, for example, the number of people killed at Auschwitz the sign outside the door, the number outside the door at Auschwitz has been coming down consistently for like 30 years, right? Not as many people died in the gas chambers as at Auschwitz as they've told us, because Auschwitz didn't have the facilities to bake that many people, okay? That didn't happen. Those people were instead shot. A great number of them were just shot. Ooh. This guy doesn't know the first thing about it. I'm sure that he doesn't know the first thing about that. And what does he mean? I don't know that so Holocausters deniers, the people they call Holocaust deniers, don't deny the Holocaust. They just say it didn't happen the way we've been told, and it definitely didn't. History, you learn more about history the further you get away from it. And the people that he calls climate deniers, I don't know myself about anybody who at this point doesn't believe in anthropomorphic climate change. What they argue is whether or not we can do anything about it. And I doubt that there's anything Canada could do about it, because we don't either produce or consume enough oil. We're not going to do anything. Canada itself, maybe by serving as an example, Canada is an example to the world. To anybody looks up to Canada now. Really? Our emissions went up by more than any other G7 country. So we're hobbling our economy, and we could have been selling those natural resources, taxing the income, and building in Canada an infrastructure that didn't rely on oil and gas. The world's going to consume what it consumes. We could have actually rebuilt our infrastructure, but if you say that, you're probably a climate denier. And then so takes maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then they start saying that people who thought that the 2020 election in the United States was fraudulent, he's put them in the same category as what he calls climate deniers and flat earthers. So his argument was, if you want to talk to people that are this crazy, you have to have a emotional connection, you have to respect them, and then you can have a talk. So what he's done is put into the mind of the person that he's talking to that when you deal with someone that denies the fraudulence of the election, you're kind of talking to someone that's on the same sort of headspace as people who deny that the earth is round. The reason that we think that the election was fraudulent, number one, just this. You want to look at election fraud in any election. Hillary Clinton, the FBI, cooked up a story that ran for 3 years about Russian collusion. It was bullshit, right? So they said the last election was fraudulent, but this one isn't. So among the things that I would say are pretty good evidence that there was some hanky-panky there is the fact that Mark Zuckerberg paid for like 40% of the infrastructure. So he paid for the voting booths, he paid for the ballot harvesting, he paid for whatever, but he didn't put his thumb on the scale. Okay. You believe that? I don't believe that. People voting without photo ID. You can look at the rules and see that the signature verification process that people were put through was weakened in that election. The standards were weakened. So you sign the ballot, and they can check your signature someplace, and the match that you had didn't need to be as exact as it was in the election previously. So really, Mark Zuckerberg paid for like 40% of the infrastructure. No photo ID, no signature verification. We know that Republican observers were intimidated at the stage where you open the ballot. When you open the letter, it's pretty impossible to say whether or not the ballot itself coming out of the letter was valid, because you have to look at the envelope to establish if this is coming. Okay, let's say I don't know that well. But what I do know for sure is that the Republicans and Democrats have to both observe it, and that Republicans were kicked out of that process. So when they think it's an important thing, you look at the letter, you agree that it's valid or whatever, you take the ballot out, and then you count it. You have to look at the envelope. Republicans weren't allowed to look at the envelopes. We know that they changed the uh, election laws in states in the United States illegally. If you want to change an election law in an American state, you have to go through the legislature. The legislature in those states looked at it and said, no, you're trying to defraud us. You're not allowed. You can't change the election laws. And they changed them anyway. There's all kinds of just factual things. And what this guy has done is he said, okay, there's no evidence for election fraud. The guy you're talking to is a nut. But you need to approach him with a bit of respect, and then maybe you can change his mind. Okay, Steve, and your friend there, could we change your mind? Honest to God, could we change your mind? He's complaining that some people are still saying that the January 6th, they're still calling it an insurrection. The FBI hasn't charged anybody with an insurrection because insurrection implies planning, and the FBI planned it. These are facts. They're saying that people still believe there were peaceful protesters. Yeah, there was a lot of peaceful protesters. There's a lot of video, actually. China Uncensored, that guy, is doing videos called America Uncensored now. He was there. He talked to thousands. It's mostly peaceful. And that's just the truth. But now if you think that, I've seen the video evidence of it, right? You're sort of in the same category as people. He would call it climate denier and people who are flat earthers. So, like, there's just such a profound lack of logic there right from the basis. I don't think either of them knew it. But they set themselves up as people who are going to change the world with their wisdom and insight and all that kind of stuff. So if you compare what I just saw on Steve Paikin to a usual trip like Trudeau taking off on Truth and Reconciliation Day, lying about it and going to Tofino on a holiday like we wouldn't figure out that he lied about it, didn't attend anything, went on vacation. Who's worse, man? They're peas in a pod. Trudeau's worse because he does it on a larger stage. Steve Paikin is just... the Chinese Communist Party recommended to Chinese people in Canada that they vote for Justin Trudeau, and they voted for Justin Trudeau. I think in a lot of places they'd call that election interference, but I guess the idea is that election interference has to be secret. It's not really. So this is just flat on the surface. The Chinese Communist Party tells Chinese people to vote for Trudeau. They vote for Trudeau. We know that. So Trudeau can at least count on the Chinese Communist Party vote, can he? Nobody's talking much about that. The CCP came out and endorsed Trudeau before the election, and then Chinese Communist Party, I shouldn't say party, Chinese citizens in Canada voted for him. And ethnic communities in Canada voted for him. Densely populated cities in Canada have really high immigrant populations, have more say because of the way that ridings are cut up in the election than people who don't live in those areas and who, let's face it, frankly, aren't as likely to be immigrants. So in Canada, immigrants' votes count for more. I think Trudeau lost the popular vote by like 2%, and they still won 43 seats, more seats. So with fewer votes from human beings, they won 43 more seats. You can't get rid of them until you change that seat arrangement, and nobody talks about that. Unbelievable. Okay, so that's it.